folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. Audrey Rose, it's Daddy. Audrey Rose, it's Daddy, come here. It's Daddy. Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen. This week we are doing another movie review. This is Audrey Rose, released in 1977, directed by Robert Wise, yes, Academy Award filmmaker, and starring Anthony Hopkins, Marsha Mason, Beck and Susan Swift. Now, before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to my brother Mark, whom without his influence I would not be doing this today. I would not be a horror YouTuber, because he introduced me to scary movies. So God bless you, Mark. I miss you so much, and I love you. So yes, Audrey Rose, released in 1977. And this film came out at a time where there were a lot of, like, Exorcist knockoffs and The Omen knockoffs, and this film, I think, kind of got lumped into that category because there are some small similarities, and the film does have a little bit of that supernatural element, but I think this film is a much more of a slow burn psychological horror, and more in the line with, say, Rosemary's Baby than The Exorcist, for sure. So, unfortunately, that's why I think the film kind of faded into obscurity. Maybe people went to see it expecting The Exorcist kind of thing, But yeah, this isn't really like that. Much more of a psychological horror film, and that's where this film excels, I think. And yeah, it's amazing to me how Anthony Hopkins didn't really become a star until Silence of the Lambs, because he was in several Hollywood movies way before that. And, this is back in the 70s here. And he was in films like Magic and The Bounty with Mel Gibson, The Elephant Man, but hey, an excellent actor, and no different here. He has a fantastic performance. As does Marsha Mason. She is just fantastic in this movie. Like, you can just feel the tension, the fear in her voice, in her mannerisms, the terror she's experiencing, the confusion. She just lays it all out there and really sells it. So, definitely an Oscar-worthy performance, in my opinion, by Marsha Mason. With that being said, the film starts out with, Mr. and Mrs. Templeton and their daughter Ivy, played by Susan Swift. And then, just having a blast, doing things that families do, going out riding bikes together, going on picnics out in the park, just having a good time together. And they kind of notice there's this guy kind of in the background that seems to be watching them, and everywhere they go, he's there, he's got this long trench coat, he looks kind of creepy, what is he doing? And he does kind of fixate on the little girl, and you're like, what's going on here? Is he like a pedophile or something? Like, it gets scary, and that's kind of how it starts out, and then as the film progresses, you realize there's more to it than that, like, who is this guy, what does he want, And then, one thing about the young girl, Ivy, is she's got some serious psychological and mental problems, and, she screams out in the middle of the night, she has these horrific nightmares, and she just kind of goes mental and loses it, and she, to the point where she's, like, uncontrollable, and, the parents, like, don't know what to do about it, And this guy, Elliot Hoover, played by Anthony Hopkins, we find out that, he had a young daughter, pretty, like, the same age as Ivy, Audrey Rose. And, once they kind of get him and sit him down so he can try and explain himself, why are you stalking us, why are you fixating on our daughter, and he kind of, explains it, and he had been doing his research on reincarnation, so that's what his mentality is, reincarnation. He's studied it for years. He's gone to psychiatrists, he's gone to psychics, and they have told him, your daughter is still alive. Her soul is still out there, she's still alive somehow. So what happens is his daughter died in a fiery car wreck, a horrible accident. When she's just a little girl, in the car caught fire, and she died, and she just happened to die just about the same time as Ivy was born. Ivy was born 2 minutes later. So it's like, so he believes that Ivy is his reincarnated daughter, Audrey Rose. So therein lies, I guess, people might see it as similar to, like, The Exorcist, where it was like, possession and reincarnation, there is some similarities there, So I can see why this film kind of got lumped in there, but you don't see any crazy effects or makeup effects or crazy blood and gore or anything like that in this film. It's all, like, psychological. That's why it's really good, And the performances, even the young girl, Susan Swift, is just fantastic, a great little child actress, great performance. Right up there with Linda Blair, I would say, in The Exorcist, But yes, excellent film. It's got such great slow burn tension, and it becomes a battle of wills. The mother, played by Marsha Mason, she kind of is starting to lean towards believing Mr. Hoover because he's so gentle with Audrey, and he seems to be the only one that can calm her down when she flips out, and he just kind of shows up out of nowhere because he is everywhere. He's been following them, so he's always around. So he happens to be around when Ivy starts flipping and freaking out and they don't know what to do. So he comes up and he calls her Audrey Rose. Audrey, it's Daddy, it's me, and she responds to that and she starts to calm down and she runs to his arms and he's able to get her to calm down and quietly go to sleep. And, this happens several times throughout the movie. Now, the husband, Bill, played by John Beck, he's totally against this. He thinks this guy is just a psycho, maybe even a pedophile. He just thinks this guy is out of his mind, typical crazy New Yorker, like, and when you're in New York City, there's all kinds of nuts out there, So that's his mindset, is like, what can I do to get rid of this guy, How can I get him out of our lives, get this nut out of here? He's terrorizing this little girl, At one point, he actually does kidnap her, It's like, because he feels that Audrey is being, like, almost abused at this point. They're not doing anything about her sickness and her illness. They're not taking her to psychiatrists. They're just trying to deal with it on their own, and they can't because she's obviously got serious problems. She needs serious help. So he kind of gets her out of there and calms her down, and, he takes her off into his apartment, and then, he gets arrested, of course, for kidnapping, and they have this big court battle about it, and the mother, like, comes to the rescue and testifies in favor of Mr. Hoover, and that really makes her and the husband clash. And, they have some serious arguments, and they're having some serious problems with their marriage over this little girl. And, the tension just mounts and mounts and mounts until the end, which is just fantastic, an excellent outstanding, powerful ending, and yeah, this is just a great film that I think is a hidden gem for sure. It's a film that you just don't hear much about. You never hear anybody talk about it, and yeah, you got this great cast, you know, phenomenal acting, a great story, great slow build, tension, great direction from a great director, Robert Wise. You know, he's legendary. So, absolutely, I highly recommend Audrey Rose. If you guys have not seen it, definitely grab this excellent Arrow release of Audrey Rose. I give it 2 devil horns way up, and thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared. Good evening, folks, and we got some brand new merchandise for you over at www.thehorrorcona.com, and that's CONA.com. Representing the Horror Corner. Great new design. We got the Morbid Hour live stream there, you got the Horror Hangout live stream there, and you got my nemesis, the Dark Fate. So grab your t-shirt over at www.thehorrorcona.com. And we also got this beautiful new mug. Look at that. Very, very cool. Thought that came out really nice. So grab your merchandise today over at www.thehorrorcona.com. Folks, don't forget to grab your Sean Patrick Erschen gear and represent the Horror Corner. Also, check out these awesome mugs we have. Perfect for your coffee. And definitely check out the Horror Hangout live stream t-shirt and represent the legacy of the Horror Hangout. Check out the link in the description below this video.